This is the grand finale of the Child Sexual Abuse series featuring Miss Sifon on the first outdoor interview on the Little Bits of Stuff podcast show, interviewing Mrs. Sarah Ologo, our guest for this episode. Let's talk therapy.
Thank you for having me on this podcast. I'm excited to be here to be able to share my experiences or give some information that will be helpful to everyone listening to the podcast. So, my name is Sarah Ologun, and I'm a counseling psychologist. I have been in this field for over 5 years, and I've been able to talk to a number of sexual assault survivors. That is over 400 sexual assault survivors. And so I'm glad to be able to share from my wealth of experience with everyone joining this podcast today.
Thank you, Mrs. Sarah. So I'll be asking a few questions on the child abuse series, and for new listeners, we've had 5 episodes of the child abuse series, and this is the final one. So my first question is, what are the signs of child sexual abuse in the child?
Okay, thank you for that question. I believe that you'd have already talked about who a child is in your series, and you'd have already talked about what child abuse is, sexual abuse is. All right, so if that has been covered, then it's important for us to know that there are actually signs in a child that has been sexually assaulted. Okay. Now, very well common with children is that they could try to pretend, try to hide the signs because they are afraid to let it out. Probably afraid of most of the time, afraid of their perpetrators. And on another angle, they are ashamed of what has happened to them. And they don't know if anyone they talk to will believe them. But then there are still signs to look out for. Now, there are physical signs. There are behavioral signs, okay? And so for the physical signs, you would probably experience sleepy and eating disturbances. So for example, your child could be sleeping and jerk up from sleep with fear, like waking up, a rude awake from a nightmare. So your child will be experiencing nightmares a lot. The child will lose appetite in some cases. On some other cases, the child will just continue to eat normally. Now, for a child that has already overcome bedwetting, had stopped bedwetting, the child can start bedwetting, or the child might not be able to get to stop bedwetting. So, bedwetting is another key thing to look out for. Now, for most of the younger children, say like age 4, age 3, age 5, they're about. When you're washing or cleaning them, you find out that they will clinch together from in their vaginal area, talking about if it's a girl. Okay, as you well know that boys are also sexually assaulted, yes. So they would flinch, they would clinch when you're about to wash them, and then they could go, it's paining me. Okay, some of them will walk up to you and say, oh, my vagina, they point to the pubic area, but they say my bum bum is paining me and all that. Those are signs to look out for. You can check up what is going on in that area. Sometimes if you get to ask them, why is it paining you? Did anyone touch you? They will go no, because probably the perpetrator has threatens them not to talk, or they are just afraid of what the mother's or the person's reaction will be. Now, you could also notice vaginal or penile discharge. So probably the perpetrator just finished and he left his discharge on them, or you could find out that they begin to have vaginal discharge, as doctors will know that it's very maybe on rare cases that children will have vaginal infection. But I've seen a child, come up with vaginal infection, and that was how our parents were able to know that she was actually being sexually assaulted. Then they could also suffer urinary tract infection. They could you would see bleeding from either from the anal or the vagina. You could see bleeding from there because based on the rough handling of the perpetrator, then you see those signs. Then there will be pain during urination if they are trying to wee, because obviously if the perpetrator has just had a intercourse with them thereabout, then eventually the whole place is sore, and then you could actually find pregnancy. So we have seen I've seen several young girls that have been pregnant, and the youngest that I've seen is an age 12. Wow. Okay, pregnant. So those are actually the physical signs. All right, so there are behavioral signs, and you notice a lot of aggression in the child. So the child is actually angry at what has happened to him or her, and the fact that the child cannot talk or express him or herself. So you see a lot of aggression. You see the child will be either clingy. For a small child, the child is really clingy to that person she or he can trust. Any other person, he wants quite a distance from the person, or the child will be withdrawn. So a child is just a lone ranger, always alone, and quite occupied or preoccupied with his or her thoughts. Now you find out that the probably will be constantly avoiding a particular adult. So you say, let's go, won't you greet this person? And then they are giving the person an attitude. So, or let's go visit, go and stay with so and so person. And then, they are all teary, they don't want to go and all that. So those are physical signs. There could be regression in behavior, okay? And they could also be in constant low mood. So they are always sad. You find out that sometimes you try to make them smile, but before you know what's happening, they are back to that to the sad mood. You'll find out they are having inappropriate sexual behavior. So you are just wondering, why is she always just staring at someone dressing up? Yeah. Why is he always trying to pick at they just have inappropriate, or they are sitting with you, or the way they touch themselves. Because many a times one of the symptoms you find with young children that have been sexually assaulted is that they begin to masturbate. Okay, so those are really the behavioral signs and physical signs that you see in children. So
talking about nightmares, when a child starts having nightmare and then they don't talk about the sexual abuse issue, probably growing up, probably because they didn't trust anybody, can the nightmare escalate into adulthood and then it gets really bad?
In adult, now it depends on there are people that suffer sexual assault, depending on how long the sexual assault was, depending on how many perpetrators assaulted them. Yes, so you find out that they'll be having nightmares at an older age. If it was a one-off when they were younger, they probably would not suffer those nightmares. They would, they would have overcome it somehow. Events would have taken over, and then they probably would have moved on with their life. But for such people that, different perpetrators, longer periods, different times, at that older age, they will be suffering what we call complex post-traumatic disorder. So they could be having the nightmares as a symptom also.
So how do we identify a pedophile? Like, do they have a particular character traits? Just like we can say, oh, this child has been abused somehow. Can we also know which adult can abuse a child?
Okay, so now that's where the trick is, because it's not written on the forehead.
Yeah.
And most people that have such behaviors, they try as much as possible to have a kind of countenance that you can't suspect. Albeit, like it's often said, by their fruits you shall know them. So such people, you can know them by what they say. All right, their actions around younger children, what they ask children, how they refer to younger children, the kind of attention they give to a particular child. So they will focus on their predator, and try to get their predator secluded from other people. So if, for example, and the thing is, a perpetrator most of the time is not a stranger.
Yeah.
Yes. So 99% of the time, they are familiar people to the family, or whether familiar people to the survivor. Yes, or to the child. So for a child, they could first of all observe that this child is a loner, maybe parents very busy, child always at home. So they try to close up to the child, behave like a big brother to the child, and before you know what's happening, a lot of things are already going off. Now, if it's a family relative, they'll present, like one person said, she said, oh, that she did not know because this particular person is the one that will gather the children, to teach them. And so she always just felt, oh, he's a teacher. He's interested in the child's well-being. Like educational well-being. That so he shouldn't be hurting the child. But instead, he was the one. So they would be very nice to the family such that you can't even suspect when it starts happening. But then you notice that the focus, maybe they are gifting the child, they give the child gift, they give the child attention, they allow the child slide, maybe like there are some offenses that you should punish the child on, they let it go and all of that. So basically for every parent, or maybe as it were guardian of a child, the thing is you should be very mindful of everyone around and watch out to know, study the fruits, how the dealings of people around before you can really be comfortable, whether male or female, really be comfortable with such persons and all that. Yes.
So when it comes to cases where the father is the one abusing the child,
yes,
how can the mom? Because I feel it might cause trust issues in the family,
yes,
and this can make the family very dysfunctional. So how can a mother handle trusting her husband and also protecting her child, knowing that fathers can also abuse their daughters?
Yeah, daughters. So now the truth is, for every mother, okay, while I know that there is that part of us that can be living in denial, but for every mother, you can very much, your husband, and you know the kind of person he is. To some extent, he has told you about his escapades in the past. To some extent, you know the kind of materials he's feeding on right now. So, like, I've seen a woman that says, okay, that her husband abuses her nannies. But she would package the nannies and send back. So until the perpetrator assaulted her own child. The father now assaulted the child, his own daughter, yes. So for somebody that you see, if your husband, if a husband is that person that has been molesting the house help, is a big red flag, because it's just a matter of time. Because I would presume that most house helps are kind of maybe between their teenage age when they come to your house. So that means there is something endearing him to children. So it's a matter of time. If you think your child is still a baby, she will soon grow to be a teenage. So if he can do that to a teenager that just came to your house, whether it's as a help, he can very well do to your child. So, and then there are some others. A woman suspected her husband and saw the signs in her daughter that the husband was fingering the child, and she mentioned that he feeds a lot on pornographic material. Yes, feed. So the fantasies will go wild. All right, and you don't even know if you would have already fed on on child, because you know that there are child pornographies and all of that here. So if he has already had that material, so you will know your husband and you will know what is so. But many a times, women keeping our marriages will make us live in denial until it now very well happens. So, but if there is any woman that notices things like this in her husband, I think she should be more careful leaving the child around such husbands.
So could outfits be the cause of child abuse? Because we hear stuff like, oh, why was she dressed that way? Or why did she go there? So could the dressing mood be a problem? Why somebody would see a child and want to abuse the child?
Okay. So my question is no. The answer is no.
Okay.
The straight answer to that question is no. It's actually a myth. Because you see girls awfully maybe like provocatively dressed,
Yeah.
and the next thing that goes off is and now if they rape them now they'll say they raped them.
Yeah.
So but you see, the dress sense or how a person chooses to dress is just all about that person, that individual. So if I wear something, I'm provocatively dressed, I just want to dress like that. I'm not asking for anyone to rape me. Okay?
Yeah.
So that means rape is actually all, it's all about the perpetrator. The perpetrator fantasizes, imagines it, plots, and carries it out. Because now, for example, if you tell me it's about the dressing and I'm provocatively dressed and I'm standing at a T-junction, why won't someone grab me there at that T-junction and rape me there?
If it's about the dressing.
Yes, if it's about the dressing. Why won't someone rape me there? Why would you have to get me to a corner where nobody can see and rape me there? Now, if it's about the dressing, why are 3-year-olds raped? Are they also provocatively dressed? Do you understand? So eventually it's not about the dressing, it's all about the perpetrator. So that's why I say, as many people that want to address the issue of dressing, make it a topic on its own entirely, separately, in whatever community you want to address it. Don't say to a young girl that you were raped because of the way you dressed. No, because people that are all covered up have been raped. Young girls have been raped. Provocatively dressed people have been raped. It goes, different. It spreads across different races, tribes, peoples, nations. It's just something that is common, and widespread like that. So it's not about the dressing.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so if one suspects a child has been neglected,
Yes.
or feels the child has been abused, what should that person do? Especially if, for example, like a teacher notices the child is always alone and doesn't relate to other people, and then you find out or you suspect it's a child abuse case, what should you do at that point?
Okay, so now I would say you could be a teacher to that child, right? You could be a neighbor to that child.
Yeah.
So now what you do is, because I know that nowadays in Nigeria as it is, we try to maintain the mind your business policy because eventually when you put your nose into it, the parents will very well say mind your business, or even everyone will say what's your own business. So but you see, that child is still our business. It's still our business because eventually the child forms a larger part of our society, whether now or in the future. So what we help the child with today will speak a lot, for the future. So really, in the government agencies and in the gender-based awareness field, what is being said is there are mandatory reportings. Okay. So sometimes you say, okay, I need to mind my business, so I don't want anybody. So I've gotten calls of saying, okay, I want to be anonymous, but I've observed that such and such child is being abused. So you can give the address, you can give maybe as much information you know about the child. Okay. And so then when you report, I'll be sharing some numbers later. When you report like that, give the details of the child, where the child can be found, and tell us maybe details of what is going on with the child. Then eventually, help can reach the child. So that's called mandatory reporting. Okay. So once you see it, report.
And you
Don't
can
mind
be
your business. You
anonymous.
can be anonymous, but give the details on how to reach the child.
So what happens when you report you're anonymous and even in your face, the family denies what has happened? Especially for neighbors that really know what is happening.
Okay.
And then the right agencies come and they try to handle the matter, but the family now denies what happened.
So that's why, as much as possible, if we can, there could be calls of, oh, there's a child that is always crying in the night. If you can, thank God for devices nowadays. You can make recordings.
Okay.
Then especially child battering can never be hidden.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of, okay, no problem, we're just going to examine your child. And then you already see the signs of battering. Something like child neglect cannot also be hidden because they could interview the teacher to say, okay, how often does this child come to school? How does the child look? Is the child well fed? Do they give the child, food as in care for the child in terms of the outlook? Is she always looking unkept, or is he always looking hungry, and all those? So you can interview the child, interview certain people to now get the information we need.
Okay. So in handling family child sexual abuse, especially the one of the father, siblings, because now we realize that media has made everything worse for some people. So we have children molesting children because of what they watch, but because of conversations they've had outside the family. So they could be from a very religious, strict home, but these things happen. So how can the family handle this thing without causing hatred amongst the kids?
Okay. So now talking about sexual assault among siblings or sexual assault, especially children.
Yeah.
Children are more of imitators. So number one is, for example, the Christian home that you have mentioned, I'll presume that the materials available to them will not be pornographic. Yes. So maybe until they become teenagers, and then maybe they are exposed to it from their friends. But most of the time, when you find a child trying out abusing another child, is because that child has been assaulted.
Okay, so it's a give and take thing.
Yes, it's like a circle. Yes.
And then they now have themselves abusing other kids without even knowing what they are doing.
Without knowing what they're doing. So I've seen cases like that. So a 4-year-old abusing a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
And when we find out 4-year-old, why are you abusing another 4-year-old? He was looking clueless. So we know that you can't send this 4-year-old to jail now, definitely.
He doesn't know what he's doing.
Yes. So we find out that there is a person that the mother drops in with, also a 7-year-old girl that assaults the boy.
Okay.
Now, the truth is, at the end of that line, there will be an adult. We could not find the adult at the end of that because the mother of the 7-year-old girl was not forthcoming. Yes. So, at the end of the day, now you find this. So, imagine this 7-year-old and the 4-year-old being siblings. The 7-year-old has been assaulted by an adult.
Yeah.
She's trying it out on her younger brother. So, we find this with maybe nannies, maybe drivers, maybe cleaners, maybe house help. So people, maybe, or gatemen. So they assault one, maybe the oldest. The oldest now assaults the younger. Yeah. So what you do in cases like that is, number one, get the adults at the top of the food chain, as it is. So get the adult at the top of the chain and cut the adult out.
That way you can help the children.
Escalate, report, let necessary things be done to the adults. Okay. Then now begin to deal with the children. So refer them to child psychologists. Let them go, visit the centers that I'll be mentioning. There are actually psychologists there, okay, that can see the children, talk to them, know the extent, and also advise the parents on how to help the child. So things to look out for, all right, how they can, because it will be a constant counseling, because as at that time, most of them, the children, they don't even really know what they are doing.
Yeah.
They are just imitating. It has been done to me, let me just try it out with someone else. So it's a constant thing. So it's embedded in their upbringing, and it's somewhere in their subconscious that the behavior is not right.
Wow. That's a lot for a child. So, when things like this happen, when a child has been abused and they don't have adults they can trust in the home, probably they've seen how it has been handled with their older sibling, who should they talk to? If they can't talk to the teachers, they can't talk to their parents, they can't talk to their pastors or imam, who can they run to by themselves?
Okay, so now talking about that is for every one of us to begin to make these numbers as common as 911
Okay.
is. I was watching a program, and then it was in children's, like maybe about preteen class, and so the teacher was faking, but he pretended like he had an accident. And so one of the child already said, "Oh, let's call 911." So if we make these numbers, most of them are they have maybe devices at their reach.
Yeah.
If these numbers, if we escalate it, if we spread it as much as possible, then these children can actually handle the numbers and just call. All right. So I've had children call.
Okay.
Yes,
By themselves.
by
Without
themselves.
no adults getting involved.
No adult getting involved.
For children that don't have access to, let's say for example, far north and probably some western states that don't have this contact, what should they do?
So it still actually boils down to the child still speaking out. It still boils down to the child. Yes, children will be scared that on the way things will be handled. That's usually what it is, that, oh, if I speak, they will beat me.
Yeah.
That's the fear. But I've had children talk to their friends, and good friends will talk to their mothers. So that parent would approach the child's parent. It makes it easier for the child.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
So while also you can't trust every friend. So but I've had people follow that. There are some other children too that will say, okay, this auntie looks calmer and approachable. Let me approach the auntie, and then she will be able to relay the message to my mom. So, but on a general note, we will still say maybe a mother will still fit into the comfort zone of being the trusted person to talk to.
Yeah.
So for every child, try to first of all relay the message to the mother. Now for mothers out there, okay, and even especially parents or guardian, if your child has in a way tried to be able to step up to tell you about a sexual assault case, know that it's something that didn't come out of the child just easily like that. It took a lot of energy for the child to speak. Now, I've had cases whereby you find out that the child speaks, or the parents find out that sexual assault, there's child sexual assault abuse going on, then they batter and beat the child.
Yeah.
It's sad. I feel like actually beating the parents, but I can't, because if they beat the child and leave the perpetrator, they don't do anything to the perpetrator, it's killing. The child won't talk again if anything like that happens.
Yeah.
Because we need to understand that sexual assault shuts the mouth of the survivor, because you feel immediate shame. You are confused about the fact that who will believe my story. You are scared that if I talk, they will beat me. And so the child, and also the perpetrator, would have even threatened that if you talk, I will kill you, I'll kill your parents.
Yeah.
Some of them have made them to take oaths. And children, being children, they easily believe these things. So they live in that constant fear that keeps them shut up. So that is what it is. But some parents will say, oh, I love you so much, you couldn't share this with me. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
It's
True.
not that easy. So if a child is able to walk up to you, wherever you are, to share with you, I think we should take it very seriously.
So I think we're almost done. Okay, let me ask one. Can child sexual abuse be the cause of BDSM in adults? Because I just found out about BDSM.
Okay, please give
So
me the
there's the
full.
bondage, dominant, submissive, and masochism. I think that's how it's pronounced.
Okay.
So for people that have watched 50 Shades of Grey, they know about the dominant and submissive,
Okay.
where the person is always chained to
That's
have sexual activities. And some people feel, some of the people who enjoy that were probably abused as kids. So the question some people have asked me is, can child sexual abuse be a result to that in adulthood, where the person just wants to, the person allows infliction of pain during sexual activities?
Yes, child abuse as a whole can actually lead into such. Now, there's a case of a young girl who, all through her childhood, people that were to love her hurt her. Yes, so eventually, by the time she was going to start dating people, so she couldn't believe that if you love me, you won't hurt me. So it was more for her that the right thing is you will beat me, then have sex with me. That's how I know you love me.
Wow.
So it's a twist. You see, sexual assault, child sexual assault as a whole, when it happens to a person, it twists the thinking. It introduces a lot of negative thinking. It gives the person a lot of irrational thought lines.
Okay.
And so it's these thought lines because the person generates, because you see, as human beings, we are able to adapt to situations. For example, you are in Nigeria right now, you say the weather. All right, maybe a little rain now, you see everybody wearing their sweats.
Yes.
When you get to Canada, it's the cold is it's freezing. But a lot of our people are going there. How are they coping? How are they adapting? After a few months, they adapt to what the weather is and all that. So we have that nature as human beings to adapt. So we have a lot of ways, psychological ways, that we adapt to psychological issues. So this has happened to us. We know we have to cope. We know we need to move on. Everybody is saying get on with your life, and then we are trying to, it's a struggle for us. But once the sexual assault happens, like for example, the case I told you now, the only way she could get a balance in her life is just to tell herself that, you know what, these people love you, but the interpretation is that people that love you will hurt you.
Yeah.
So that's the thought line she has in her subconscious. If she can't sell that to someone else, but it's something that is already embedded in her, and she acts it out unknowingly. But it's something that she had to tell herself, so that at least she can be able to wrap her mind around whatever has been happening to her from childhood. That okay, they love you, but the answer is that people that love you will hurt you.
So could it be that the people who now hurt them might have gone through the same thing growing up?
So that's you see, that's the danger of sexual assault as a whole. Now the truth is, a lot of people have been sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
Some have been able to get maybe their closure, or have been able to take up some new learnings, have exposed themselves to some materials that have helped them to be able to become better persons. Some have taken that pain and they've translated it into a message to help other people. Whereas there are some that have not been able to get out of that pain. They have not been able to deal with that issue. All right. And so eventually it comes off in their behavior. So some men, not all, some men some women that sexually assault now have been sexually assaulted when they were younger. Some of them. So on top of my head, I know a particular person, that assaults. I mean, it came off that he assaults his nannies.
Oh, okay.
So, but it was actually a nanny that assaulted him when he was younger.
Oh, so he has not dealt with that trauma.
Exactly.
Wow.
So, but like I'll say, some, not all, that assault, is as a result of that.
So, we're closing up, and this question keeps coming up a lot of times. How do we help a child's mental health? We know that mental health is a big problem now in Nigeria. How do we help a child that can't really talk about these things? We've observed everything that is happening. Probably the child had spoken and was beaten up for it and all. How do we help this child balance up? Because these things affect their education.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the child was doing fine. All of a sudden, the child starts dropping grades. How can everybody collectively, the family, the school, the churches and mosques, how do they help this child get back to that innocent child he or she used to be?
Okay. So, while I will not assure you that there is a total end to child sexual assault, or because it's traumatic, and trauma actually leaves that scar or memory, there. What can happen is that the child could be able to turn the mess into a message. Okay. So, but to totally forget, so there will always be a bit of the scar, like the remembrance, but the child can grow out of it. So as family members to the child, as a neighbor to the child, as maybe a teacher to the child, it's important, number one, that we try not to stigmatize the child.
Okay.
So we don't stigmatize the child. As a parent, you don't refer to it to insult the child. I mean, you bring it up and say, oh, no wonder you were assaulted. No wonder you were, if you know you are smart, that would have not happened. So as much as possible, don't insult the child, by making the child remember that, bringing up as a remembrance to insult the child. We shouldn't gossip about it, that the child, we are going from year to year, that's the child that was, that's the child that was, that's the child that was. For a parent also, if sexual assault happens in a particular, maybe you rented a place and it was in that environment it happened, you can help your child by relocating. You can help your child by relocating, move out of the environment. Something that is also very key is that you help your child's self-esteem, because when sexual assault happens, the child, there's that feeling of worthlessness that can come in. So a child feels like the most valuable thing that I have in my life has been taken away. So it's important that we emphasize to children that what is most valuable in their life is their character, and and how they carry themselves. That's how, the values they place on themselves, and the standards they set for themselves, that's what's important. So that's what is going to, take you up on the top of the ladder at your place of work. That's what is going to help your marriage, because they'll be concerned about, how do I get a good man to marry me since this has happened? So, but that's not, sexual assault does not stop you from fulfilling your dreams. So these are the messages we need to pass to the children, that sexual assault has happened, but it doesn't stop your life from moving on. So you need to know that what is important in you has not been taken away by the perpetrator. You need to understand. So we need to put in things that will boost the self-confidence and self-esteem of the child. Yes, so basically that's the message as a parent, as a family member, that you need to carry around the child. Sometimes when sexual assault happens, some parents feel guilty that, it's because I wasn't there, and they try to maybe pay back the child. And you find out that some parents will now begin to pamper the child,
Yes.
Just to say, okay, let me pay back for what happened. No, you can't pay back, because paying back means you're pampering the child. Pampering the child means you are not allowing the child assume responsibilities. The child not being able to assume responsibility further destroys the esteem of the child. So that means what you need to do is to help the child be able to assume responsibility, be able to carry out chores, and celebrate the child for being able to do things, so that she is able to believe that there is still a lot. She knows and believes and sees that there is still a lot more in her. Sometimes I encourage parents that if it has happened, you can try to talk to the class teacher to see how they can make her the class captain of the child or the class, so she's being responsible here and there. So that will awaken her self-worth, okay, and self-esteem and self-confidence.
So in talking about moving out, is it ideal for the parents to take the child to a boarding school during the period this has happened?
Now, it depends on the boarding school. You won't be taking the child because what she has just gone through is traumatic. Then it depends on what's the child's interpretation of a boarding school. Then what kind of boarding school?
Okay.
Maybe if it's the kind of a boarding school that maybe we went to in those days, in those days that it was not maybe a lot traumatic. The way seniors would really order you around, the way they would, and all of those things. So, but I know nowadays boarding school is a lot fair. If a senior should send you there, I don't want to go, or you report and all of that. So now it's to seek then it's to engage a child in a conversation. Oh, sweetheart, would you want to go to a boarding house so that this environment it just gives you you're able to take off some time. So if the child is open to it, fine.
Okay.
Yes, because else it will be like if the child perceives the boarding house as a traumatic place, it's like you're taking the child from trauma to trauma. And that won't do good. She'll just feel like, well, because I told you now, that's why this is my punishment. Yes. So as much as possible, it's important to involve the child in the decisions that will now be taken. So because I know it's not that easy to move houses, but then if you can move houses, it's just the best for the child.
So this is the last question. What can be done to help a child that has suicidal thoughts after being abused?
Okay, so like it is, suicidal thoughts is one of the things that come in emotionally for the child as the effect of sexual assault. I didn't talk about the effect of sexual assault. We only talked about the signs. So it's one of the effects, and it's a long-term effect. Yes, it's a long-term effect that comes from, when the sexual assault has been, continuous. So what do we do? Now, would this question be that if the child shares or if the child does not share? Because if the child does not share, you don't even know that the child is having such thoughts.
Okay, if the child shares and then if it was noticed, because there are times you would notice someone has suicidal thoughts probably from what they say and how they behave, the things that interest them. They probably like to touch ropes and some funny things. Okay,
so it's important now to find out, because you see, if a child has been sexually assaulted and you take all of the steps that I just mentioned like a while ago, and there's love in the environment, the child is accepted back, the child is encouraged constantly, you won't find the child going into maybe suicidal thoughts or depression, as it were. So, but for the child to go that far, it means the environment is still very toxic. So number one is to bring the child out of the toxic environment. So number two is to begin, allow the child see a counseling psychologist, a child psychologist, and maybe as a first aid is for you to begin to point out, understand why the child is going that route, is thinking that, and help the child understand that the world is a beautiful place. Help the child understand how he or she can move on from what has happened. Help the child understand how he or she can cope, with the feelings or the symptoms that he or she is feeling. Okay, so because when sexual assault happens, there are the symptoms the survivor feels. There's a short-term symptom and there's a long-term symptom. Okay, and so the child needs to understand, because at that time the child will feel like, I'm the only one in this space. It hasn't happened to any of my friends, and since I'm the only one in this space and nobody cares about me, I should just kill myself and end all this because I don't feel good inside. So a counselor or a child psychologist will help the child understand what the symptoms are, how to cope with the symptom. Okay? And very well, it's important that the child is in a setting, that is encouraging. So that it doesn't continue to trigger the suicidal thoughts.
Does sharing experience help the child?
Yes, talk therapy does a lot.
Okay.
Talk therapy does a lot. So that's why it's important, even for people that sexual assault happened when you were younger. I mean, the fact that you're older does not mean that it has automatically erased off. So it's okay to still talk to a counseling psychologist. It's okay to see a psychologist. Just talk therapy is good. Because by the time you talk, then the counselor, the psychologist, is able to help you understand the irrational thoughts you're having. Help you see why they are irrational. And help you understand where it is coming from. Okay? And then help you to now be able to then, based on, because I believe a lot in client-centered approach. Because I believe in you is the solution. I won't recommend my own solution to you. That's what works for me. Because my personality is different from yours. So harnessing the strength in you, we can be able to see what works for you, to be able to help you cope with the scenario, cope with the situation. Okay, so basically that's what it is.
Wow. Thank you so much. We would love to get contact, phone numbers, addresses, or possible places people can run to when issues like this happen.
Okay, so I'll share 3 major places. I have this contact in Lagos State because I'm based in Lagos State. Okay, so you can call for sexual assault. You want to make a mandatory reporting. You have seen sexual abuse, child sexual abuse, or maybe if it is if you are the person, a survivor that is already all grown, you can always call WARIF. WARIF is at Yaba.
Okay.
Yes, it is on number 6 13th Street, off Tobon Avenue, just behind Ozone Cinema.
Okay.
Yes.
That should be located.
Yes. So, and you can reach WARIF on 080 921 00009. That's 080 921 00009. Now you can also reach Mirabel. Mirabel is located at Lasut, Lagos State Teaching Hospital. That's at Ikeja.
Okay.
And the phone number to reach them on is 080 940 00028. Again, 080 940 00028. Then you can also reach DSVRT, Domestic and Sexual Violence Response Team. They are at Alausa Secretariat under Ministry of Justice.
Okay.
Yes, and you can reach them on 080 62 88 78 69. Yes. So if you need an online counseling, okay, so you can always reach me on 090 62 88 7844. So that's 090 62 88 7844. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm very sure a lot of people have learned a lot. People are now more informed, and they should know what to do when cases like this happen. And for kids that might listen, they will be able to get the contact and report. And wow, this has been very helpful. And this is a wrap up for the child abuse series. It's been interesting having to listen to different child abuse cases and how the survivors have been trying to get over the trauma, and how it has even escalated to adulthood. And thank you for this exposure, this information, and I really hope our listeners do something about any case that comes to them. Like, let's mind our business, but let's also help our children. We can be anonymous in minding our business.
Exactly.
That's one thing I've learned today.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And that's it on Little Bits of Stuff for today. Please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Podcast. You can also get it on Audio Mac and YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at Lil Bits of Stuff. That's LILBITSOFSTUFF. And on Instagram at Little Bits of Stuff. That's LITTLE Bits of Stuff. Until next time, stay healthy.